She said it quietly, not scolding, not teasing, just enough breath behind the words to make me forget what I'd been about to say. "Don't flirt with me," she murmured, eyes still on the stack of papers between us. But she smiled when she said it. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes right away, the kind that waits to see if you'll notice. We were sitting across her kitchen table, a soft afternoon light spilling through the half-open blinds. She'd offered coffee because I'd helped her carry a box in from her car. Old records, she said. I could tell they meant something. She held them like something fragile. I didn't plan to stay. But she had that kind of presence, the kind that slows time down without asking permission. Her name was Mara. Mid-40s, maybe, though she moved with the quiet assurance of someone who'd already stopped trying to impress anyone. Her hair was slightly undone, the kind of messy that looked deliberate. And me? I was 20-something, pretending not to notice how my heartbeat felt louder than the ticking clock behind her. She passed me a mug. Her fingers brushed mine, quick, but long enough to feel deliberate. "Hot," she said. "I'll risk it," I answered. That earned me her first real glance, not a polite one, but the kind that holds for a second too long before drifting away. The air between us felt different after that, thinner, maybe, or thicker. I couldn't tell. She leaned back, crossing her legs, one arm resting on the chair. "You shouldn't say things like that," she said. "Like what?" "Things that sound like you mean more than you should." I almost laughed, but her tone wasn't playful this time. She wasn't trying to embarrass me. She was protecting something, herself, maybe, or me. Still, she didn't tell me to leave. Instead, she asked me to help move another box. And I did. The second box was heavier, and when I set it down near the couch, she was standing close enough that I could smell her perfume, something faint, with a trace of warmth underneath, like cedar and citrus. She stood behind me, close enough that her sleeve brushed against my shoulder when she reached past. Neither of us said anything. Silence, at that moment, said enough. "Can I ask you something?" I said finally. "You already are," she replied, still facing the shelves. I hesitated. "Do you really not want me to flirt with you?" She turned then, slowly, her expression unreadable. "One has nothing to do with it." That should have been the end of it. But her voice caught halfway through the sentence, just enough for me to notice. A small sound escaped, not a sigh, not a word. Just breath. She stepped back, folding her arms, as if she could press that moment back into silence. "I'm old enough to know better," she said softly. "Maybe," I said. "But that's not what I asked." She looked at me again, and this time she didn't look away. The air felt warmer, the quiet louder. Then a knock. She blinked, as if waking from a thought she shouldn't have had. "Stay here," she said quickly, brushing past me toward the door. Her sleeve grazed my hand again, that same unintentional, electric touch. I turned slightly, catching her reflection in the window glass as she reached for the handle, poised, composed, but not as calm as before. The door opened. A woman's voice, younger, curious, drifted in from outside. "Should I come in?" Mara hesitated. Her hand stayed on the doorknob. Then she said, without turning, "She told me not to flirt." The other asked, "Why not?" And the room felt quiet again. She didn't introduce the woman at the door. They spoke quietly, two voices threaded with familiarity. Then the other woman left just as quickly as she came, leaving behind the faint smell of rain and perfume. When Mara closed the door, she didn't meet my eyes right away. "She's a friend," she said too quickly. Then, after a pause, "Sort of." The words hovered there, uncertain. I nodded, pretending it didn't matter, though I noticed the way her hand stayed on the doorknob a second longer than necessary, as if it grounded her. When she turned back, Her calm had returned, but something had shifted. "Sorry," she said. "That probably looked strange." "It didn't," I lied. She half smiled, walking past me toward the counter. The sound of her steps filled the silence between us. "You're not very good at pretending you don't care," she said softly. I didn't answer. The truth was, I'd been watching her since the first time I saw her, 2 months ago, when she came into the university cafe where I worked. She'd been grading papers, frowning at the noise, her hair falling across her cheek. I'd made her coffee 3 times that day, just for an excuse to talk. Back then, she wore a ring. She doesn't now. I don't know if that's recent, but I noticed. Now, standing in her kitchen, I noticed everything: the small scar near her wrist, the uneven line of her lipstick, the quiet way she exhaled before speaking, like she was measuring how much of herself to reveal. She leaned against the counter, her back to me. "You ever get tired of being looked at like you don't know what you want?" she asked suddenly. I froze. "Sometimes," she nodded. "It's worse when you do know." Her tone wasn't sharp, just honest, a little tired. "I was married once," she said after a pause. 15 years. He wasn't a bad man. Just absent. We stopped talking long before we stopped living together." I didn't say anything, afraid to break the spell of her openness. "I keep telling myself I'm fine on my own," she added. "But some days, the silence in this house feels like it's waiting for me to say something back." When she turned, her eyes softened, regret, curiosity, something between. She reached for the mug near me, her hand brushing the back of mine. Neither of us moved. The moment stretched, her breath close enough to stir the air between us. She didn't pull away first. "I shouldn't," she whispered, though her fingers lingered. "I know," I said. "But you haven't." Her lips parted, not to speak, but to breathe. The air between us trembled. Then she stepped back, clutching the mug as if it gave her something to do with her hands. "You should go," she said softly. But she didn't open the door. And I didn't move. For a long second, we just stood there, silence heavy, charged, alive. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, "Next time, bring coffee." The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. She came into the cafe again, same table near the window, same half-finished notebook beside her coffee. But this time, when she looked up and saw me behind the counter, she hesitated. A faint smile flickered, uncertain, then faded before it could decide what it meant. I brought her drink anyway. She didn't order, and I didn't ask. When I set the cup down, her fingers grazed mine, just long enough to remind me she hadn't forgotten. "I told you not to flirt," she said softly. "And you told me to bring coffee," I murmured. That earned the smallest laugh, the kind that slips out before she can stop it. "You really shouldn't make this harder," she said. I almost asked what this was, but before I could, her phone buzzed. A name flashed on the screen. Lena. The same voice I'd heard at the door. Her hand froze halfway to the phone. She didn't answer, just stared at it until the vibration stopped. When she finally looked up, her composure was cracked, just slightly. "She worries about me," Mara said. "She thinks I get too attached to people who won't stay." She didn't mean it as a warning, but it landed like one. I sat across from her anyway. "And are you?" I asked. "Attached?" She looked at me for a long time, saying nothing. Her lips parted once, then closed again. The air between us felt stretched thin, full of things neither of us should say. Outside, the rain started, soft, steady, like background music to the silence building around us. She reached for her mug, but her hand shook slightly. I caught it without thinking. Her eyes lifted to mine. The cafe suddenly felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that notices every breath. Mara, I started. Don't, she whispered. Someone could see. But she didn't pull her hand away. A door opened behind the counter. My coworker, Jamie, coming out from the storage room. Hey, you good to close up tonight? He asked. I nodded too fast, my hand slipping from hers just as he looked over. Mara had turned away, pretending to scroll through her phone. Jamie left again, humming something under his breath. The door shut. And then silence. We both exhaled, too quickly, almost in sync. She stood up, moving closer to me. You're going to make me regret this, she said quietly. Then at least make it worth it, I replied before I could stop myself. Her laugh came out like a sigh. You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said, but my voice betrayed me, softer than I meant it to be. Her face was inches from mine now. The rain outside deepened, blurring the world into gray and silver. She looked at my mouth, then back into my eyes. A second too long. We didn't kiss, but we stopped pretending we wouldn't. When she finally stepped back, her voice was barely a breath. This can't happen. And yet she stayed. The storm came back that night, sudden, loud, filling the quiet spaces of the city with thunder. She texted first. Power's out. You still up? Before I could think, I was already at her door, soaked through, heartbeat faster than the rain. She opened it wearing an oversized sweater and surprise. You didn't have to, I know. The candlelight behind her flickered across her face. Soft shadows, tired eyes, the faintest tremor in her voice. She stepped aside. Come in before you drown. Inside, the air smelled like rain and something warm. Cinnamon, maybe, or the candle melting too fast. The house was dim, the only light moving across her face when she spoke. You shouldn't have come, she said, but her voice didn't sound sure. I was already on my way before I read your message, I said. That made her smile, small, helpless. You're dangerous with words. We stood there, close but not touching. I could feel the heat of her body, even through the space between us. She reached up suddenly, brushing wet hair from my forehead. Her fingers hesitated halfway down, tracing a line she had no reason to trace. You're freezing, she murmured. You could fix that, I said, too quietly to take back. Her hand froze. For a second, I thought she'd step away. Instead, she exhaled, slow, heavy, and looked up at me, her eyes searching for a place to land. This isn't what I wanted, she whispered. Then what do you want? Her silence was an answer I could feel. She turned, walking toward the window, staring at the storm outside. You think this is simple, she said. You think it's just, I don't think that, I interrupted. I stopped, words failing. She turned back, her eyes glistening in the candlelight. You're young, she said softly. You still believe things can begin without someone else ending. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. I stepped closer, close enough that I could see the reflection of the flame in her pupils. You think I don't know what this means? Her breath caught. You can't. I lifted a hand, slow, careful, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. She didn't move. My fingers lingered there, tracing the warmth of her skin. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Say something, I whispered. She looked up at me then, really looked, and all the distance she tried to keep between us dissolved in that silence. I've thought about you, she said finally. More than I should. More than I've let myself admit. Lightning flashed through the window, lighting her face for one sharp, unreal second, beautiful, unguarded, terrified. I leaned in, close enough to feel her breath mix with mine. She didn't pull away. Mara, she closed her eyes. Don't, she whispered. Not unless you mean it. My lips hovered an inch from hers. Rain, candlelight, everything holding still, when a sharp knock shattered the moment. Her eyes flew open. The door. Again. The knock came again, harder this time. Mara froze. Her hand gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles pale. "Stay here," she whispered, voice barely audible over the rain. I stepped back as she went to the door. When it opened, the light from the hallway cut through the dim room, and there she was. Lena. The same voice from before. The friend. She was holding an umbrella, and wearing that look people wear when they already know too much. "Mara," she said quietly, eyes flicking past her to me. "So it's true." I felt every word like a pulse under my skin. Mara didn't answer. She just stood there, lips parted, caught between guilt and disbelief. "Lena," she began, but the younger woman stepped forward, dripping rain onto the floor. "You lied to me," Lena said, her voice breaking. "You said he was just someone who helped with boxes. You didn't mention the part where you couldn't stop looking at him." The silence that followed was the kind that fills every inch of a room. Mara's breathing grew shallow. Her fingers trembled where they rested on the doorframe. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I shouldn't have to be," Lena snapped, then turned toward me. "Did she tell you that she's been avoiding me because she was afraid I'd find out?" I looked at Mara. She didn't meet my eyes. Something inside me twisted, not anger, not jealousy, something quieter, heavier. "You too," I started, but couldn't finish. Lena laughed bitterly. "Don't worry. We're not lovers. Just old habits pretending to be friendship." The air shifted, sharp, metallic, full of rain and shame. Mara finally spoke, her voice barely holding steady. "You need to go." Lena shook her head. "You always do this," she said. "You hide until it's too late. Then you act like you didn't choose any of it." Mara stepped forward, the tension in her shoulders breaking into something raw. "Please." For a moment, Lena just stared at her. Then she set the umbrella against the wall and turned to leave. "You're going to hurt him," she said to Mara without looking back. "You always hurt the ones who make you feel alive." The door closed. The sound echoed. Neither of us moved. The candlelight flickered again, and I finally saw the tremor in Mara's hands. "She was my student," she said quietly. "Years ago." We stayed close, maybe too close. She's not wrong about me hiding. Her voice cracked. "I don't want you to see me the way she does." I stepped closer, not sure if I was angry or just lost in the pull of her voice. Then stopped pushing me away. She looked up, eyes wet, defiant. "You think this is simple. You think it's just want. But it's not." "Then what is it?" I asked. Her answer came like a confession, quiet but devastating. "It's the first time I felt something real in years." For a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. Then she stepped closer, close enough for her breath to tremble against my collarbone. "I can't undo it now," she whispered. And neither could I. The rain had stopped hours ago, but neither of us noticed. We stood in the half-light of her living room, everything around us damp with silence, the kind that follows after a truth too big to take back. Mara's eyes were red, her hair loose now, falling into her face. She looks tired, beautiful, real. The kind of real that makes you forget what you were supposed to be afraid of. "I shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "Yes, you should have." Her hand trembled where it rested on the edge of the table. I reached for it, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. "You don't understand," she said. "If this goes further, it won't end well." "It never does." "Then let it not end well," I said. "But let it mean something." She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "You'll hate me for this someday." "Maybe," I said, stepping closer. But not tonight. The air between us thickened, not from words, but from everything we'd stopped saying. Her breath met mine first, soft, uneven. I could smell the faint trace of coffee and candle smoke. My hand rose, almost on instinct, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. She leaned into it before she realized she had. Her voice broke the quiet. "You make me feel like I've been waiting for something I wasn't supposed to want. Maybe I was supposed to find you," I said. She looked up then, eyes searching mine like she wanted to believe it but didn't dare. Her hand lifted to my chest, fingers splayed against the fabric, feeling the unsteady rhythm beneath. "I can't promise you anything," she said, almost pleading. "I'm not asking for forever," I whispered. "Just this." And for a moment, the distance between us disappeared, her forehead resting against mine, our breaths tangled, time narrowing to the sound of two people forgetting everything except now. Then she pulled back, just slightly, but it felt like the whole world tilted. "Mara!" Her lips parted, half a breath, half a word, and then she kissed me. It wasn't perfect or practiced. It was hesitant, then certain, years of silence collapsing into a single heartbeat. When she finally drew back, her fingers stayed on my face, tracing the corner of my jaw like she was memorizing it. "This changes everything," she said softly. "I know." Her eyes softened, fear, relief, something else too deep to name. She exhaled, her hand still trembling. "You should go," she whispered, though she didn't move away. "I will," I said. But neither of us did. The candle between us flickered, burning low. And in that small, fragile light, we both understood this wasn't a mistake we could undo or a fantasy we could forget. It was real. And that, somehow, was the most dangerous part of all. Morning came quietly, pale light seeping through the curtains, cutting soft lines across her living room. The candle had burned down to nothing but a shimmer of wax. We hadn't moved much through the night. Not because we didn't know what to do, but because we both knew too well what it would mean to move. Mara sat beside me on the couch, her knees drawn close, her sweater slipping off one shoulder. She looked like someone caught between peace and guilt, and somehow, both looked beautiful on her. "I thought it would feel wrong," she said finally. "But it doesn't." I smiled faintly. "That's what scares you, isn't it?" She gave a quiet laugh, one that almost turned into a sigh. "You don't miss much." We sat there, listening to the house breathe around us, the creak of settling wood, the soft patter of rain dripping from the roof. Her hand rested on the cushion between us, fingers tracing invisible circles. I watched, then slowly reached over and covered them with mine. Her breath hitched, but she didn't pull away. "I don't want to be something that ruins your life," she said. "You're young. You still have time to make clean choices. And what if this one doesn't have to be clean?" I said. "What if it's just honest?" She turned toward me, eyes searching mine for something she could hold onto. For once, she didn't find a reason to argue. "I've spent so long keeping people at arm's length," she whispered, "even when I wanted them close. I noticed," I said, smiling gently. That earned me another laugh, soft, self-conscious. Her shoulders relaxed. I leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She let me. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet but certain. "You make me feel seen. And that's not something I thought I'd get again." She looked away, blinking fast. I wanted to say something comforting, something wise, but all I could do was reach out, my thumb brushing along her jaw, guiding her face back toward me. No words. Just stillness. Then she leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. That simple touch, the weight of it, the warmth, said everything we'd spent weeks avoiding. We stayed like that, her fingers finding mine, lacing together slowly, like a quiet promise neither of us had planned to make. "I don't know where this goes," she said. "Neither do I," I replied. "But I'm not walking away." Her lips curved, small but sure. "Then stay. Just stay a while." I nodded. "As long as you want me to." Outside, the light grew stronger. The world felt closer, smaller, not fragile, just real. We sat there in silence, hands still intertwined, the distance between us gone at last. Not a fantasy. Not a mistake. Just two people who stopped pretending not to care. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?